So we continue my little series here that I started this winter, filming all the big German luxury SUVs. I started with the VW Touareg, as you guys saw, and with the Mercedes GLE. The Audi Q7 is going to come next month, I believe, if everything goes as planned. And right now I'm spending a week in the Porsche Cayenne GTS. I filmed the predecessor of this car with the naturally aspirated V8 in 2013 actually, the Green Monster review, that's what I called it. And yeah, it's interesting to be in this facelifted version, which has a turbocharged V6 engine. Not the turbocharged 6-cylinder Porsche that you guys probably want me to film. I'm very well aware of that, but currently it's minus 10 degrees outside, so not really the weather to film sports cars, I would say. Hopefully we can film the new 911 finally this spring.
Launched in 2010, the 92A is the second generation of the Porsche Cayenne and was facelifted in October 2014. The biggest visual change is the redesign for the rear, with smaller taillights and a big diffuser framing the exhaust pipes. The GTS lost its normally aspirated 4.8-litre V8 and gets the same 3.6-litre turbocharged V6 I already tested in the Macan Turbo. Here it makes 440 horsepower and a pleasant 600 Nm of torque from 1600 RPM. A boost of 20 horsepower and 85 Nm, which improves the CO2 100 kph time by half a second, down to a respectable 5.2, and adds 1 kph of top speed to now 262.
So before I start the driving review, I wanted to talk about the interior for a moment, because there are 2 or 3 things that I really have to mention before we start driving, because I don't want to forget them. And basically, when I picked up this car, it instantly felt like the last Cayenne GTS which I drove. And it kind of has the same spec and the same problems for that reason. So the main problem, and the one thing that I really do hate about the Cayenne GTS, are the seats. The standard seats here, they are 8-way adjustable, but the backrest is just way too narrow for normal people. I don't know what they were thinking. Unless you have a torso like a toothpick, you basically feel like your kidneys are squashed the whole time and you're sitting on the side bolsters here rather than in the seat. So for me, they really don't work. I've seen people telling you that these seats are great, but they are not. They are not only the worst Porsche seats that I've ever experienced, but they are among the worst seats I've experienced in general. And that's actually, yeah, not a compliment. Another thing, the standard sound system in this car is shockingly bad, actually. It only makes 100 watt, and that's not enough power to give you decent audio in a big car like this one here. I don't like the Porsche sound systems in general. Definitely go for the Bose system, or if you want to afford it or want to spend the extra money, go for the Burmester system. Funny enough, this car does have this low-end interior for the Cayenne GTS, if you want to say so, but it has carbon ceramic brakes, which for me are not necessary in a car like this, unless you want to drive high speed on the Autobahn the whole time. The stopping power of the standard steel brake is decent enough, more than decent enough. So don't spend the big money on the carbon ceramic brakes, get yourself decent seats and a decent audio system. So dynamically, the Cayenne has always been class leading, there's no question about that. I have a car with the optional air suspension, and what I find really interesting is that I can drive this car all the time in the Sport Plus suspension mode, and it still feels decently comfortable on most roads to me, and I just love that you don't have that much body roll in this setup. This car just feels like a brick. I mean, if you pick up a brick and feel the weight of something like that in your hand, that's the feeling that you get driving a Cayenne. It's just a really solid feeling chassis, I would say, and it's surprisingly capable actually. What I always talk about is Porsche Dna and just this huge confidence that their cars give me, and the last car that I drove for the channel was actually the Panamera Turbo, and given the size of that car, I was really surprised how well it drove dynamically on a winding B-road. I can say the same about the Cayenne, and I actually really do like the steering of this car. That's something that really can mask the size of a car like this. If you have a precise and great feeling steering in a big SUV, it doesn't actually feel that big on the road. If you have something a little bit more loose and a little bit lighter, that can actually make the car feel even bigger in my opinion, and that was one of the downsides that I found with the Mercedes GLE for my personal taste. yeah, I'm really pleasantly surprised just how good the Cayenne still drives. It's not really different to the previous version that I drove in 2013. It's all about this new engine, I would say, and this engine just has more torque, which is pleasant. It doesn't sound great in my opinion, but I'm not a big fan of V6 engines and their sound in general, I have to say. So yeah, something has been lost. But on the other hand, I mean, the fuel consumption of this car is definitely better. People always say, Guido, you have to be honest about the fuel consumption. Well, I'm averaging about 13 liters on 100 kilometers, and a big part of that is actually the coasting function that this transmission here has. I'm not sure if the previous version actually already had that, but I don't think so. And that really does help in a big car like this. A coasting function where the transmission goes into neutral and lets the car coast, that can save you a lot of fuel, let me tell you that. So yeah, dynamically the Cayenne is still class leading as far as these big cars go. But once you've driven a Macan, I have to say, it's really hard to go back to something bigger that doesn't have this extremely great performance that the Macan has in corners. I mean, the Macan drives better than some sports cars that I've driven. I'm not going to lie, I still will always probably prefer the Macan as the smaller car, just because I just love how dynamic that car feels. It doesn't feel like an SUV to me, it just feels like a raced station wagon basically. And yeah, that's mighty impressive to drive. So yeah, in the end, I have to say, the Cayenne GTS probably wouldn't be my personal first choice. I think this GTS team works really well with Porsche sports cars, but in an SUV, in the Panamera and in the Macan, I'm not the biggest fan of this red and Alcantara interior, and just making cars that are supposed to be a bit more comfortable, sportier, doesn't make that much sense to me, if I'm honest with you. I would like to hear what you guys think about it, but I'm not the biggest fan of the GTS trim. As far as the Cayenne goes, I would probably go for a diesel version if I could, or for a fully loaded turbo. The turbo just gets better standard equipment, and the price is definitely something that I'm having in mind driving the Cayenne GTS in comparison also to the Macan Turbo that I had. The Macan Turbo costs over 10,000 euros less than this car, has way better performance numbers, and it comes with better standard equipment because it's a turbo model. So you get better seats, you get the Bose stereo system, and if you don't need the space, I really don't see too many reasons to get the Cayenne, if I'm honest with you. I think the Macan really is successful for all the right reasons. So yeah, I'm going to keep enjoying these freezing temperatures here, and I hope to see you in the next review, guys. I actually have another nice car that I'm driving this week, so I'm not going to spend too much time anymore in the Cayenne GTS, and I guess you guys will very much look forward to that. So let's hope I'm lucky with the weather. Stay tuned to the channel. As always, drive safely in the winter here, especially when it's minus 10 degrees outside like I have it right now here. And yeah, see you soon. Take care.